once I've been canceled. I won't do the show then.
Don't do anything to get canceled. You're gonna fuck a lot of people that are like relying on this.
Oh my God, the responsibility. Yeah.
Do you feel like
No, I feel like I have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep secrets. I'm like a secret keeper. Usvitsky?
Yes.
Usvitsky?
Yeah, you got it.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Katya Usvitsky.
Nice.
Woo.
Good job.
Oh my God.
You know, that's the short version of my name.
You know what? I'm still the only one of our friends that can say it.
You definitely are.
Because I've had people on this show ask me to cut out your name because they forgot it.
Oh.
You're one of the people.
It's Deborah, huh?
No, it's a taller man.
Oh, he definitely doesn't know how to say it. No.
But I know that I like that you have a list of people that can't say it.
Yeah.
That's
You know what? I have to be like easygoing about it because it's complicated.
So what's the full name?
Yekaterina Borisovna Usvitskaya.
Okay.
That's like the Belarusian full patronymic.
I wish you hadn't said that because I was going to make a joke about how you were from Kansas or something.
Yeah.
So Belarus?
Yeah. Yeah, I was born there, and my family, my father's side of the family, all immigrated in 92 when I was 11.
So you are actually one of the few people that knows most of the guests that I've had on the show.
I don't know everyone, but yeah, I know a lot of folks.
I think you know like a good amount of people. So let's get a little update on who you are. You are half of Noisky.
Yep.
And that is with your partner, Jordan Catalano.
Yes, I'm Claire Danes. That's so funny that you brought that up. I was thinking about my so-called life recently.
I think I've talked to you about this before, that Sean Noyes is the kind of name that is like, it's like a Jordan Catalano. You don't just say Sean, you have to say Jordan Catalano.
Yeah, you have to say the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then most people go Noise.
Noise.
Yeah. Actually, his website is Noise Work.
Nice work.
That's his design side. Yeah.
All right. So then you're part of that with your partner. Mm-hmm. You guys are married?
We're married. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
My husband.
I don't know. Like nowadays, partner can mean so many different things.
Well, we kind of are partners in like every respect.
Yeah. But now people like kids say partner because gay marriage has been like legal for a long time and it has lost the meaning that it had when we were kids, where it was like partner was the way that people that couldn't get married and their love was not recognized. Yeah. They called that. They use that word, but now like the kids, the Gen Zers are like, yeah, that's my partner. And that, I think it's like nice because it's a word that means like, it's like, don't hit on me. Yeah,
exactly.
It's like, it's not my boyfriend.
Yeah.
We're in for the long haul.
Well, it's like there's like a dignity to it. Yeah. I think it's more than like girl or boyfriend. And
it's also less infantilizing too.
That's what I mean.
You're like,
yeah.
You're like,
because we're not. I mean, we're in our 40s now. We have to.
You're in your 40s?
Yeah.
You guys look amazing.
Oh shit!
Both of you.
Thanks.
All right, and then
we're vampires.
You're vampires. All right, we'll talk about that later because your husband is definitely part vampire.
Oh yeah, he actually he jokes that he's like an anemic Victorian child because he's like so light skinned.
Yeah.
But and he has to wear a lot of sunscreen. But I think that's actually like what preserves him. Both of us, actually. So
you guys are big sunscreeners?
Yeah. Well, since moving to California.
Wait, so you guys met not in California?
No.
See, first of all, I didn't know that he wasn't part of TSALA, which is something that you're also a part of.
Yeah.
Which makes us brethren and roommates as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we're like dorm.
I also thought you were part of Gallery also. Like I just assume wherever you are, you're a part of.
Yeah, I'm a part of that. I'm a part of a lot of things. I'm part of High Beams.
High Beams, that's
we
the
do
other
noise ski. Actually, I got into TSA thanks to Carl. So like whenever he's throwing a party at also, I'm there.
Yeah. So, okay. So then, let's go back to where you met Jordan Catalano.
Yeah. Oh, my sweet Sean. We met in New York. We both lived in Brooklyn, in Sunset Park, which was like not a cool neighborhood at the time.
Okay.
I mean, maybe we should like go further back than that, but yes, our origin story is in Sunset Park.
Well, okay, if we're going to go back before Sean, are you a refugee? Like, is that, do you come from a somewhat war-torn place of the world and you were born there?
So technically not like a refugee in the sense that maybe like Hugo was.
Well, no, but he's a survivor.
Yeah. No, at the time, actually, when we immigrated, it was kind of a weird time when like communism was collapsing and there was like a small window where you could leave.
Yeah.
So my whole family was like, yes, thanks.
Yeah, I think that would probably be like the Marielito period. And or I don't know, there was a period where like Castro was like, you know what, America, fuck you. You want these people, take them. He just got rid of all the right wing.
Yeah. I actually have been listening to Yasha Levine and his wife's podcast, and they talk a lot about like how that's not totally exactly how it went down. Like the thing in Russia that I'm talking about with Russia, like there was a lot of actually like effort on the US's part to destabilize the USSR. So the whole like America, the land of opportunity, is like kind of bullshit.
I mean, we can get
it's America's propaganda. I say "our" now, like as if.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's exactly what happens everywhere. It's called the Jakarta method. So if you watch The Act of Killing, we can get out of this real quick.
Yeah.
But if you watch The Act of Killing, this is like so what we do is we starve people. Until their living conditions are so bad and enough people are dying that they revolt against the government, and that's how we destabilize countries. And everybody's like, "Yay, sanctions!" Yeah. So we both come from that. It sounds like. I mean, not that like there weren't other mitigating factors on either side, but yeah. How do you feel about like this idea? Okay. You know what? Let's not do that.
No. I think if we'd go down the political route, it's
no. I mean, but the historical route, like I think it's interesting, kind of the cunning Russian enemy. As someone who's lived there, or not in Russia, but as part of the former Soviet Union, this idea of like it being competent or like really. Well, you heard what's his name's. Justin Michel's episode, right? Where he talks about how basically what happened in communist Russia was that instead of it actually being communism, what it was is that the state took the place of capitalism, right? So they became the owners
pretty much.
Yeah. And so what his point is that there's never been true capitalism. But
you mean true communism?
True communism.
I think it's complicated because it's such a huge country, right? And I think like in theory, the idea of like, everybody's equal and everybody's sharing resources is like a great utopian concept. But like I don't actually think that in practice it ever worked out because there was just like massive corruption going on.
Well, yeah. And I think if you guys haven't heard Justin Michel's episode, he talked about Amadeo Bordiga and his criticisms of just like communism as it stood. Yeah. And basically the problem in that case is that like anytime you have top down, it's just oligarchs that are running things. So it's basically not that very much of a different system than what we have now currently. Oh no, it's a democracy. Sorry.
It was a little bit different. So the oligarch thing wasn't like a thing when I was growing up there, actually.
Really?
So I was born in 81, which was actually, so at that time, like essentially.
How does it feel to be a millennial by 1 year? I get to hold that over here.
I used to actually like really shy away from it. And now I know there's like this term of like elder millennial that, I mean, so that's me. I'm elder millennial, I guess. I'm fine with it. It is what it is.
Sorry, you were making a point about communism.
Yeah. What was I saying?
You were saying that it's more complicated than
the oligarchy. So the oligarchy wasn't like a thing. I think at that, or maybe it was, but it wasn't like out in the open.
Yeah.
Essentially, that came after we left. Like, so then like communism collapses in the 90s, meaning like they start to do things a little bit differently. They start to like privatize, let businesses
America
privatize.
Comes in and just cannibalizes Russia. I
guess in a way, sure. Yeah. But I think ultimately it was like, hey, we have all these resources that were like kind of suppressed or like held by a few people, and now like people can take over like airlines or granaries. Like they can just kind of like start running things in a more capitalist way, and it like exploded because as soon as you stop regulating, they took away the regulations essentially, and so greed took over.
Yeah, there's the like it's pretty crazy. So you came when from Russia?
So we moved in 92.
Oh, that's the year that dude, we have like parallels.
Yeah? That was the year you came?
I'm from Italy. I'm not from like a war-torn or collapsing. I was like, it was nice in Italy, but I did move to the US in 92 and I had the culture shock.
Where did you move to? Florida?
Yeah, Miami.
Oh, wow.
Which is like...
Straight there.
Yeah, I mean, that's where my family's from. Yeah. I lost my British accent very quickly.
I was going to ask you if you grew up speaking English, so I guess it was like...
I went to a British school and like my mom was a Cuban lady who had kids that had British accents and she loved it.
Yeah. Did you feel like you wanted to assimilate? Like did you have that cool. sense? It wasn't cool to have an English accent?
No, Hugh Grant was not what like the middle school girls that I was like.
Hugh Grant?
Well, I mean, it was around the time.
Yeah, I guess. Was he like the English like archetype at the time?
Yeah, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, I think was around that time. Yeah. You know, but
I never thought he was like.
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't for us. Yeah. That's my point. You were in middle school, so
you're right. That's totally a great point. I was trying
to impress ladies like you, who were young girls who just did not get it.
Yeah.
You know who I didn't get? I was telling you I was watching Total Recall.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I was so wrong about Sharon Stone. She's like actually stunning. And when I was a kid, I was like, who is this?
Really?
Yeah.
I could tell she had something.
Yeah. Maybe I was like, she was like very progressive in terms of like body. I'm going to use the word progressive in terms of like selling her assets. Basic Instinct comes to mind and stuff like that. So I think that maybe as a kid, as like, you know, semi Puritan environment that you're raised in, I was like, oh, I don't like girls like that. What is happening?
I don't know.
Is that an air gun? We are at, by the way, we have not shouted out where we're at.
Oh, yeah. We're at Von Zimmer. Yep.
Say it again.
Von Zimmer.
Von Zimmer.
It means living room. And it's run by Aiden and Alaya. Alaya is actually an artist as well. And they have studio spaces next door. They've kind of like expanded over the years. I don't know a ton about their story, but I know that they started in like a smaller space that was actually had a secret bookshelf that you could go through into a living room space. So they've always had this kind of like dual purpose art gallery hangout space situation. And then this space is pretty new. Like this is their second show here.
Yeah. And I came to the opening and it was quite a rager. It was very fun.
All our friends came.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have good friends.
Yeah.
that show up.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the people in the show are also like friendly and know each other and go to, support one another.
Well, that's an interesting thing before we get into a topic. But how do you, because you were one of the warm people that early on, like I think I'd seen you, we'd been in the same spaces together, but never really interacted, just kind of were being together. And then you kind of just discovered the podcast randomly. How did you find the podcast?
Oh, I think somebody posted. Maybe it was Megan Muller.
Megan Muller. And then you just spammed. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh.
We need that. Guys, if you spam the show on your stories, we like that.
Okay. It was purely selfish because I really love podcasts and like I do graphic design for work and I make art. So it's sort of like I always need to be listening to something. Mm-hmm. Or like I always need to be like distracting certain part of my brain with a story. So I like devour podcasts. Like I could probably listen to 8 hours a day. Not every day, but I tend to gravitate towards spoken word stuff versus music. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And it was really nice to just like hear the stories about my friends that like I know fairly well, but like still something new. You always learn something new.
Yeah. It's very different when you sit down.
Yeah.
For an hour with people. It is like it is creepily intimate.
Yeah.
To a degree that you actually think that like you have a much more personal conversation than you have with friends because you never just sit with headphones and listen to each other this intimately.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm literally in you don't have there's the chances that you're not going to understand what I'm saying are very slim. Yeah. So there's an intimacy. I don't have to raise my voice for you to hear me. So it's a completely different conversational dynamic. Yeah. And then, you like, well, the nice way of telling the story is that I feel bonded to people, and then they don't promote the podcast, and I'm like, oh, they didn't enjoy it, you know, or they didn't have the same.
Maybe they don't know to do it, or like they get self-conscious or something.
Yeah, I think that's 100% it. And I'm taking it personally, and they're just like, I don't want people to hear me be an idiot, but
definitely.
But there's a trust that is established there that it sets up the expectation for me.
Yeah,
and almost like they should know what I want because we've had the talk. You know, you get what I'm saying?
You have a parasocial relationship where you project that.
Yeah, where you project it, and so it's an interesting thing. Like I've definitely learned, like from doing it, that like, you know.
No, I totally get it. I think I also feel like, I mean, you're interviewing people, so there's like you wouldn't organically do that in a conversation, like where you wouldn't. I mean, maybe some people do actually. But
it's a little annoying. Like if you're on a date and someone's like, "What do you do?" Blah 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 blah, and you're like, you don't know anything about them by the end of it.
Yeah. Or they have like their canned responses, and you're like, "I've heard this a million times."
Yeah. I get canned responses here. That's kind of the challenge sometimes to like be like, all right, but you're a person, not just your art.
Sure.
You know? And sometimes people struggle with that, which I totally understand. Like this is not for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, then what are your origins like in LA? Or do you want to talk a little bit about New York?
Oh, well,
do you have a specific topic that we should declare? Because we're like already 18 minutes in.
Oh, wow. Well, I have a few things that I thought would be interesting for people to hear.
Let's hear those, and then we can intertwine the conversation about your origin with that, if it applies.
Okay. Actually, I do think it applies. So the thing that I thought was really interesting when I was listening to Hagop's episode was that he mentioned like, oh, I went into art and my immigrant family was like, why didn't you go into graphic design? Which I was like, well, I did that, and I'm still, we're still colleagues and peers and contemporaries. Like there isn't like this perfect solution.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but do you work in graphic design still?
I do. That's your day job. So I thought like we could talk about essentially like how that served my art practice or how that's been like useful.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the idea of like how that's been a disappointment to my immigrant parents. I mean, I feel like me being an immigrant is inherently like part of who I am. That always like feeds into many aspects of my life. But yeah, like I feel like, you know, what I hope people get out of this is that these podcasts is that they can learn something that they can apply to their own life. Or like, I don't know, like if your audience is younger, if they
I have no idea who my audience
if they want. I don't know.
Well, what I try to do, the way that I'm starting to do the show now is less self-indulgent on my end and more trying to like I have gotten to a place that I did not foresee when I started this show. Like even when I started in April of last year to re-release episodes, I was like, I was not ready for the it's a community that really supports people hustling.
Yeah.
And so I find that is like, it's a really interesting thing because now what I like to talk about is sort of like how, like, for example, if you've never been to LA and you don't know how the art scene is, you only know what's going on in Detroit, or you only know what's going on in, another smaller city, like maybe there's a model maybe they can replicate a TSA LA model.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is I think like graphic design is like a small part of, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say like, that's like a way to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas, but I actually feel like a lot of artist run spaces or artists who are doing it for themselves are cobbling it together from multiple different like buckets.
Yeah, there's no there's no one formula. Exactly. And that's why it's good to talk to a lot of people because there's really no written path. I mean, I have people that like Molly Schulman, the difference between a Molly Shoelace on Instagram, Molly Schulman who made in LA, doesn't have an MFA, decided, hey, I just want to connect with artists. I don't necessarily want to be in an academic program. And in debt. And I feel like I'm in the same camp. There's so many different people. Then there's people like Liz Nuremberg, who went to Claremont, I think she said.
Yeah, I think so.
And then and now has like a huge community of people. Like, you know, it can be difficult to move to a place like LA. And I think that like all these different projects can be informative to people, you know, like, and you don't need to come to LA. You can do your own Monte Vista projects. Like that would be dope. If there was like somebody that listened to us talk about Monte Vista and they were like, hey, we're in, you know, Springfield, Ohio, or
Springfield.
I went for the Simpsons place.
Oh, perfect. I love the Simpsons. We can talk about that too.
I miss the old Simpsons.
Yeah, same. Yeah. There was a certain point where it was like,
it's like season 34 now. But anyway, in that context, I do think it's helpful. So, okay. So then can we go like, where did you go to school?
So, okay. So this is a great segue because I feel like there's like the story. So when we moved to the US, it was like me and my parents and my paternal grandparents.
By the way, are we getting wet? I feel like some rain is coming through. Are you not?
You feel it?
I feel a little bit of rain, like just tiny droplets. It's crazy.
You know, I think that the ceiling is kind of open on the sides.
Yeah. Anyway.
I don't feel it, but
maybe it's where I'm sitting.
Yeah, maybe.
At first I was like, nah, but it's hit me enough times that I'm like,
really? Oh shit.
I think we're fine. I don't think
definitely artist run space vibes in here.
Yeah, and I don't think the cameras are gonna be too wet from that. We'll see.
It actually has like a really warm quality in here. I like it.
I love this space.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I thank you for letting us shoot here. And
thank you, Aiden and
Elia.
Yeah.
That's who I was addressing when I looked at the camera.
That's beyond the camera. That's Nijana. That's the curator of the show.
Oh, okay.
I think that's why she's so excitedly like looking in the window.
I just feel bad that she's in the rain.
I know. Well, she has a studio space next door.
Oh, okay.
So she's not just like beeping in randomly. Okay. So wait, let's get back on track. So we moved to Ohio. So I went to school. I moved to like Shaker Heights, which is like kind of known if you know anything about Ohio. But it was like a huge culture shock because we're going from communist Belarus to like the deepest suburbs of like the Midwest, essentially.
What am I picturing when you're leaving Belarus? Is it like rural or is it like where were you living in Belarus?
Okay, so I was born in Minsk, which is the capital of Belarus. So it was like
there's an accord named after it, right? The Minsk Accord. Oh shit! Oh. Actually, I might have to cut that out. That might be Ukraine related.
Yeah, I don't. That's not ringing a bell.
Oh my god! I totally like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's coming up. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you were born in Minsk.
Yeah, I was born in Minsk, and I mean, it was actually kind of amazing. It was not like what I think like people picture communist Russia being like. There weren't like bread lines or anything, but the country was closed. Mm-hmm. So like you had to get a visa to travel. So we didn't travel a lot. And like also because you're living in a communist.
Was closed in what sense? You weren't granted visas or?
You might not be.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. It made travel harder.
Yeah.
It made travel into the country harder and out.
Because the West was shunning USSR countries.
I wonder if it was more like the USSR was.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying
like more insular. Like they didn't want the influence.
Okay. So, but
you gotta keep your citizens.
No, I get that. I'm just trying to figure out because the countries that you travel to are the ones that grant the visas, right?
No, you needed like an exit visa.
An exit visa. I don't think I've ever heard of that as an American.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for clarifying.
I think it's actually. I mean, I could be wrong. But that's like my memory of it is that it was hard for us to even leave.
Yeah. No. I mean, I didn't live in.
And we didn't travel outside of the USSR either.
Because I remember as a kid, me asking my dad, like, "Hey, how do we get visas to go to Italy to travel?" And he's like, "You don't need you're American."
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I mean, that is also maybe that's just American.
Well, why did you ask that? How did you? What did you think? Because we
used to travel. I didn't know.
You didn't know?
I think it was around the time that I learned about the concept of visas, which I'm still obviously not very clear on.
But that idea had to come from somewhere. Like, what was your?
Like we just traveled a lot as a kid. So like my dad worked for the UN. We had he got a paid vacation
in Geneva.
No, it was
in New York.
Oh no, he worked in Rome.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
Food and Agriculture Organization.
Okay.
It's a neoliberal program, so I learned a lot about neoliberalism. And so we would travel like that, and so that's where the questions came up. I was like, how do visas work? You know, and
it's just a way to get money.
Yeah, but also like it's interesting that I didn't like. You see what I'm interested in here. That like I'm so like visas are like water to me.
Oh no, they're very hard to get.
I didn't realize that. Like as an American, so that's why I was like, wait, are people not granting it to you because you're Belarusian, or
they don't want you to, they basically don't want you to say you're traveling to the US or wherever and then just not come back.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Because they know that it sucks to live there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been well established. Yeah. No one, we're not commies that argue that. We're pinkos.
Yeah. That's funny. You know, I worked at the UN for like a year
How much
in
fun
Switzerland.
was that?
It was pretty stuffy.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can circle back to that one.
When I was in
it actually was great, but not because it was the UN, because of like where, you know, the organization and who I was working with.
Wait, what organization was it?
It was Franciscans International, which is like a Franciscan Catholic the good NGO.
The nice Catholics.
Yeah, the fun Catholics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that love
Did you ever get to go to Assisi?
Yeah. That was like the first thing we did. So it was an internship after college, actually, like my first like job. And there were five girls that like came from North America, essentially.
And this was in the 1900s, correct?
It was, yeah. No, it was 2003.
2003, okay.
Yeah. I graduated high school in 1999.
99? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in 1899.
In the 1900s.
Yep.
That's something that I've heard going around through millennials or through Gen Z. They're like, oh, you.
Oh, God.
But I embrace it.
It's so weird. I don't feel like I'm that old.
No.
But if I were, when I was in my 20s and I knew of somebody in their 40s, I would be like, oh, their life is established.
I think it's because they lived through the 70s, or they were born in the 70s and there was lead. And like they just aged like crazy. There was lead everywhere. I think that is like a thing.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that is why because it's one thing to look back to like the 1800s and be like, damn, that 20-year-old looked 50.
Yeah. Well, sure, they barely had drinking water.
Yeah. But like when you look at, you know, some of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Think about Kevin Costner. That guy looked old at 30. But compare him to like a Brad Pitt.
Well, I think people age at different rates as well. Like, I think also not having kids and having a lot of money is helpful.
Yeah.
Both of those things set very unrealistic expectations of how you're supposed to look. But Brad Pitt had like
a bunch of kids.
Not out of his body. And I'm sure he had a lot of health.
But we're talking about two men. Unless we're including Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh my God.
First of all, I would never, ever think of doing a comparison, like commenting on women's age on this podcast. It just seems gauche. But like just to talk about like how much, because I mean, dude. And then I think smoking also probably has an effect on like on people looking younger. Like none of us, or I don't smoke. Like you don't smoke. If I still smoked, I'd probably look way older.
Yeah, I also don't drink at the same level that I used to in my 20s.
Yeah, I didn't, and then COVID happened, and now I'm like somewhere in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to cope somehow.
Nah, you got to stop. But okay, so then I'm sorry, we're like really all over the place.
We are kind of.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Ohio. Okay. So I went to Ohio University, and because I have immigrant roots, I went there for pre-med.
Okay.
That was like, my dad was like really, really pushed it. And after a year, I realized I couldn't hack it. Essentially, like
what you did a year of pre-med?
Yeah. It was brutal. Well, I was really good in science and art. And I always, even as a kid, said that I was going to be an artist. And then it just kind of like, I don't know, you just have to think more practically than that. Or at least that's the impression that I had. Mm-hmm. I had an 8 a.m. biochem class that I failed spectacularly. Mm-hmm. Truly because it was at 8 a.m. I retook it the following year and got a B+. So I like redeemed myself. But yeah, so I went to Ohio University, which is also like a huge party school. Mm-hmm. And essentially I started taking art in the second year and really quickly realized this was for me. Mm-hmm. Was like a huge revelation. And I actually didn't know what graphic design was until I took a graphic design class and just completely like fell in love with it. And
how fortunate, because my parents pushed me towards graphic design and it was just not for me.
No,
I mean, it's just like a language, you know, mm-hmm. as opposed to like, anyway, so you liked it? You were into it?
Like loved it.
Yeah, cool.
I think it was it was the first time in my life that I like found something that I was both enjoyed and was good at, mm-hmm. and it kind of just all gelled in the same moment.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking all of the like prerequisites that I needed to for that the second year, and then applied. You had to apply to the program, which was like pretty competitive. Mm-hmm. I would say actually very competitive, and I like still have flashbacks of people who didn't get in and how heartbreaking that was for them. And like one person literally was like running down the hall with their resume or like their CV or transcript or something like to like add to their portfolio, and like they locked the doors and shut him out. And he just like could not, like that's still like one of those moments. That's
anxious. Wow.
That's bad.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of mean.
I just think about what my mom would have said to me. It's like, you got to prepare, Javier. You got to be ready for these things. Oof. And I'm like, it doesn't help, Mom.
Yeah, no.
My mom's nice. It's just she just has mom tendencies, and sometimes they're not sensitive to how bad you feel. But sure. But cool. So then, like, when did you start actually going from like making graphic design to like wombs?
Yeah. How the hell did this happen?
How did we get here?
Well, the trajectory
stone wombs? Are these stone? What are these made out of?
They're soft.
They're soft?
Mm-hmm. Everything is. So I got my degree, and, you know, I had that internship in Geneva. And so essentially like doing graphic design was like the compromise to like, I'm not going to do pre-med, but because I want to do art, I'll get this like degree that's in like a field you can actually get a job in. Mm-hmm. And eventually, and so I did the year in Switzerland doing graphic design at this NGO, you know, like basically like hand making a lot of their materials that they were sending out. So graphic design actually has a lot of like hand making. It can. It's not all like in the screen. And then
especially for our generation too.
Yeah. Well, actually, I never did like paste up or anything like that. That was a little bit before my time.
Did you ever fuck with Letraset?
No.
No.
I don't think I did that either.
Those are the scrape-on letters.
Oh God.
They still had them in Italy when I went to school there.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was the 1800s. Yeah.
And by like, because Italy when I was younger was like way behind by comparison.
Yeah.
So then when did you what were your early interests in like, okay, this is graphic design, but there's this whole other world that my parents will never understand.
Oh, I think they would understand.
I'm teasing.
They're actually weirdly both pretty creative, and my dad has like the same affliction that I do, which is I call it like restless hand syndrome. Like it's like we really enjoy doing things with our hands, like making stuff and repetitive tasks. Like he does a lot of woodworking. Oh, so okay. He always kind of just calls it a hobby. He like wouldn't call himself an artist, but you know, he still like has a compulsion to do it like constantly for hours on end.
Maybe that's a good boundary to call it a hobby. And
yeah, it could be. But then he like wants me to like sell his work for him. And I'm like, I can't even do that for myself. Like I wish there was a way.
Why don't you just get a job on Broadway? Why can't you just get a TV show?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Boomer parents, they definitely, I mean, yours aren't boomers because they were actually,
Are they?
I don't think they are. And I've been thinking about that because my parents were born in Cuba. So are they technically, like, I know culturally they are baby boomers because they grew up in Miami and went to college here and stuff like that and were assimilated. But I don't think they're technically baby boomers. And I don't think yours are either. I think they're just generationally even. But I think boomer is a very American.
I yes and no. Yes and.
Yes and.
I think that they still have the same expectations, right? Like,
yeah.
Like my parents were like, why don't you guys have a house? Why haven't you had kids? Like, why, like, do the things that you're supposed to do? Yeah. It's
crazy. And it's always funny to me, like, sometimes you like tap into like they're very much from a culture of the earth is our garden to do with as we please, you know, like we can reshape it. It's our place. And sometimes you'll be talking to your mother who you think is like totally reasonable person. And you're like, holy shit, how did that thought get in there? And it's like a generational thought, you know, like it's
definitely.
Yeah. I think they grew up when like during the Atoms for Peace program. You know what that is?
Atoms for Peace. It's ringing a bell. Tell me what that is.
There's a band with Flea in it and the guy from Tom York that is called that, and they named it after a program called Atoms for Peace, which was a PR program in the US to like rebrand nuclear power as not just weapons. And so they were trying to use it for fracking, and they would irradiate all the like natural gas. They were trying to use it to build canals and stuff. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like that mentality of just like, oh, we've got these bombs, let's just move land masses, you know, and like it's
that's definitely not our generation.
Our generation sees how fucked up Mount Rushmore is. I don't think the boomers did.
Oh, right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It still kind of blows my mind that.
But I would imagine that your parents have a different different relationship to that.
They're kind of like they kind of have a combo because they still live in Ohio too, and they like.
But they were adults when they moved here, right?
They were like in their early 40s. But I feel like they like in terms of like.
Imagine imagine fucking, did they speak English?
No.
Jesus Christ. Do they speak it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom speaks it very well. My dad is like so.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredibly hard to learn a new language, especially like
as an adult.
Like as an adult and to be like fluent and
that's why I don't know any of the kids' slang.
Yeah.
Because I'm 40 and I can't learn new languages. No, my parents moved when they were very young. So I think for them, it's probably more of like a cultural impact. Yeah. That must be insane. I can't even imagine, especially but if it was an 80s movie, it would be like they were in paradise. But the reality is that there was probably a lot of culture shock too, right? Because even as an American, when I leave the country and come back, it's like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
There was a lot of, it was sort of like, no, they weren't in paradise. You mean like to begin with or coming here?
When you come here, like if it was like an 80s movie, it was like, all repression in Belarus and like they're just in bread lines, which you said they didn't have, but like, you know, that's how it would be characterized.
They maybe did when they were younger. I mean, my parents were born in the 50s. Think about that. Like my dad was born in 52. Both of his parents were in World War II.
Wow.
Up until 45. I can't even imagine.
When was Lenin? Do you know?
30s?
1930s? Okay.
Fuck. I should know that.
No, it's okay. Do you have any idea when Stalin came around? That was like, because it sounds like your parents were in the Stalinist period, which was not the fun USSR.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they don't talk a lot about it too, and maybe that's on me to actually ask them those questions.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be like a fun memory for them. Same way as like my grandparents didn't really want to talk about the war, even though like it deeply affected them.
You don't think that they would have some appreciation for your curiosity?
Oh, of course they would. Yeah, no, I mean we have conversations, but this is an interesting one that you're having like as an outsider, where like I'm so familiar with all of their stories, but I didn't even think to ask like,
I mean,
tell me about the Stalinism era.
Well, I'm just trying to piece together, like, because we're trying to get a sense of the culture shock. So, if
they couldn't own property,
okay,
we didn't have a car. So in a way, like the way that society was set up, this is actually very interesting because in a way, like you didn't have to worry about owning property, and you had public transit, you had free healthcare, you had free education, and all of that stuff theoretically is like amazing. Like we would love to have that here.
Yeah.
Except like the healthcare wasn't like great. The education was good though, and there was a lot of focus on education, and there wasn't really like religion. So all of those things are nice. I feel like here it's like it's like religion runs.
Yeah.
A lot of decision making on the governmental level.
Yeah.
We can barely afford education. We definitely cannot afford housing. I mean, we can rent forever. We can be in debt forever.
Have you listened to the Why Philosophy Matter episodes of this show with the two concepts of liberty? It's interesting because socialism.
I think so.
Because the socialist, like what you're describing, is those two different kinds of liberty. One being the freedom from oppression or from, which is the negative sense of freedom that is tied to privacy. Yeah. And what you're describing comes more from monarchic systems, which is like you're less worried about who rules me and more like what am I free to do? Yeah. And so these are freedoms in a different context, right? Like the freedom, like as you're describing them, the freedom to not have to own property, which I don't know about that one as a freedom, but healthcare, public transit, like all these services that are provided to you. Like, so it's an interesting thing because I feel like when regicide was a big issue, like you had to provide certain things so that people wouldn't revolt and murder.
What do you mean? When was regicide a big? Like you mean
like during monarchic times? I'm not talking about Russia. I'm talking about the concepts. Like where those concepts of like free healthcare and all of that. Like so, it's an interesting thing because that
also free is relative, right? Like it's
you're paying for
you're paying for it.
Yeah, but
like we could have it here, but it's just not a priority, right? Because it makes people too much money.
There's no profit motive.
Exactly.
And that I think is a different, and it's fair to say that like I know that Canada's healthcare system, I've been surprised because my sister married a Canadian and he came over here and she has health insurance through her job, which is probably very nice because she has a decent job or a good job. And he was like, "Oh, you can go to the doctor?" And it's like, "Yeah, if you have insurance, you can go to the doctor whenever the fuck you want." Where he was like surprised that you could just go to the doctor. Although that's
in Canada or here?
Like he was like, so
they de-incentivize it. Yeah. I think you can, but why would you?
You know what they're doing in Canada now is they're the assisted murder thing. 2/3 of people in Canada are I'm not 100% sure on this.
Okay.
So this is not a conspiracy theory I'm spreading. If it's misinformation, I apologize. But my understanding is they have a program there for assisted suicide.
Okay.
And they are giving it to people who actually have
I'm freezing.
No, I know it is starting to get cold. That are healthy and could survive, but they can't get services and they can't get things, so they offer them. So it's a big scandal that's happening.
You can choose to opt out of life because you can't afford fucking medicine.
Yes, and because you can't afford, like some people are doing it. That
is so bleak.
Yeah, no, it's fucking dark out here. But let's talk about how hard it was in Russia.
Comparative. So this is the conundrum, right? Is that it was hard.
Yeah.
in a different set of circumstances, and it's still hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I think that my parents had this like huge disappointment, like this moment of like realization where they were like, this is the American dream isn't like a thing.
No, yeah.
At least not anymore. Or maybe was.
Did they ever feel like it was for them? Because that would be the generation that, in my ignorant mind, having not lived there, felt like, you know.
It was my mom's dad who was like really pushed it. He was like, you should go there. But he you know, also lived through the war. So comparatively speaking, to go to a continent where there is no war.
Yeah. No, it's
fucking great.
Yeah. How did they do finding work and stuff if they don't speak the language?
Yeah. So they were both engineers.
Okay.
Interestingly enough. Weirdly, they never like pushed it. I don't think either of them super enjoyed it. My mom was an electrical engineer. My dad was a mechanical engineer. He dealt with like water systems. And actually he did a lot of like hand drafting, which
it's
I
cool.
think is kind of like where my graphic design thing comes from too. Like I think I just enjoy, like I have that type of mind where I can like think 3-dimensionally and also like do a lot of visual communication, 2D. So wait, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. What was the question?
Grafting. Your parents, how did they get?
Oh, how did they get work? Right. So it was rough. They went to night school for English, and then they just worked as custodians. So it was literally like
downgrade,
but also like they sold all of their possessions and came with like, I don't know, couple $1,000, $3,000, something like that.
What kind of stuff could they? So they couldn't own property. What could you own? And they didn't have a car.
So you could own property technically. If you were obviously if you were wealthy, but very few people were. There was basically like a allotted amount of space that everybody could have, and because my grandfather was in the war, he had priority in terms of like purchasing an apartment. So it was technically his apartment that he purchased, but it was really like my parents. Mm-hmm. So we had a 1-bedroom apartment for the 3 of us. That was like the square footage that we were allowed. So technically, like, they did buy that place and then they sold it for for nothing. Yeah, but it was theirs. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, like in terms of owning a vehicle, so they had to get their driver's licenses when they moved here.
No.
They're still like terrified of driving. They hate it.
I would totally be terrified of driving with them. I got in a car with my mom. She recently told me that she got glasses, and I was like, thank fucking God. Because I was trying to be really polite to her. I'm sorry, I'm putting a jacket on.
Yeah, do it. It got really cold.
Do you want to go grab your jacket? Or I don't mind.
I have like no, it's all right.
You sure? You're not cold? You're my guest.
I'm both like, yeah, like I don't want to interrupt the flow.
Okay.
I think I'm okay. I just keep my hands awkwardly in my legs.
No, it's interesting, and I don't have a lot of experience talking to people who live, like my parents were dispossessed. My family was dispossessed. They didn't live in a system that already was in place, right? Like they lived through the revolution that made it Cuba communist.
Yeah.
So their experience of communism is very different, where it's this abrupt thing where people came in and they just took their families' like inheritance.
You were at the start end of it, and I was at the tail end.
Yeah, exactly. As it was collapsing, so it's really fascinating to hear that. What informs your interests in art making? Does this play any part into it? Because I'm seeing you've mentioned there's like nipples and wombs.
Oh well, so my work essentially is all about the body.
Okay,
and like I think that, of course, like everything that I do informs every aspect of my life in one way or another. But I think my interest really like came down to just sort of the dysphoria of that feeling of like being in a body, but also getting so much external input that kind of like contradicts you being in that body. Like, for example, advertising is always like, it seems to me like is essentially targeted towards telling you that whatever it is you're doing it wrong. And you should be...
At the very least, you could do it better.
You could do it better. You're never like good enough, essentially. So that's sort of part of it. And I really... So to go back to... Sorry, we keep going back to...
This is fine.
Russia, but actually it's relevant. So...
Well, I asked it in the context of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I grew... So my mom's mom was very independent, lived on her own, grew her own food, grew her own flowers that she would sell, made her own clothes. One of her dresses is actually in the show. Mm-hmm. It's that. So we were invited to bring like an object to the show. This is all immigrant artists, by the way.
Oh,
this show.
Okay.
Yeah. This all comes full circle.
And even there, that's an interesting distinction because we have similar backgrounds in the communist setup, but my parents are refugees and I'm first generation and you are an immigrant, which I think is probably going to inform your work very differently than my experiences, you know? So I like what you're saying about the body. I think that it's interesting, like the consciousness thing is still kind of lingering in my head after talking to Renee Forrest about it. So in that context, I totally get it. But also the body as the only thing that you can take with you everywhere you go is an interesting idea.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but because bodies are just interesting without that context.
I feel like I don't know. I'm sort of like not necessarily in control either. Like I can't help but make the thing that I'm making. But I think it's informed by, my history too. Like my grandmother taught me how to sew and how to knit and how to make things with my hands. And there was a certain level of like craft that I've always been drawn to. And then it sort of just evolved into these abstractions. But when I was working, in New York and living there and trying to figure out like, what is my art going to be? I really
apologize for all the noises. Some of them are going to get through. I just want you to know that we are in an art space, so this is a genuine experience for you, okay?
Yeah. I think it's all right.
No, it's fine.
The hammering was a little bit.
I just want people to know that we know it's happening.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So they're not like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Did you hear that train?
Sorry,
it's kind of nice to hear the train, actually.
I didn't hear the train so much as I hear the drilling.
Yeah, and the hammering, for sure.
But go ahead.
So I was always trying to figure out a way to just bring like making things with my hands back into my life because I was doing design and I was really missing that like component of actually like building something. Initially, I thought I was actually going to be a painter.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a painter.
No?
No.
How do you identify?
I made like a terrible painting, but it really informed like the direction of my work. So how do I identify? I guess I would say like a sculptor. I kind of like call these like assemblage sometimes. I mean, that's like a very pretentious word.
I would struggle with that.
Yeah, because it's not really found objects.
Yeah. But I mean, it's fair enough.
It's an additive. I tend to be drawn to like an additive process where I'm like molding and sculpting things. I mean, it's not unlike using clay.
Yeah.
Which I find like 10,000 times harder to use than...
So these are like stuffed animal balls, essentially?
So it's hand felted fiber.
Okay.
So the way that
how does felting work? Is it felting like the hobby that people have?
It's not even as serious as all that. Because there's needle felting, which is like you use like a barbed needle to basically like jab at the felt and it like kind of
puffs up.
It actually like compresses it.
Oh, okay.
It makes it like stick together and like become more compacted and you can shape it that way. But this is just more like rolling balls and the nice thing too is that my hand is really in the work. Like it's really like the size of my palm that is as large as I think the components are going to get.
Yeah.
Or like as teeny tiny as my fingers. And everything in between. Right. So what I did for this particular series of work is I am buying skin toned pantyhose. that are, and so it's the pantyhose are stand-in for skin. And
those are on the outside of the felt.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm stuffing them and
pantyhose felt container.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I can't say like why specifically pantyhose, aside from the fact that like they're kind of inherently like a female garment, and they're also meant to like restrict and smooth and perfect the body. And
it also works that they tend to be skin toned of various kinds. Yeah.
And that's kind of a fascinating thing too, because like when I would buy them at the store, they would be called things like nude or suntan. Like, who decided that this is nude or this is suntan?
Some creep, I assure you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh. I love this color.
So gross. Yeah. So I mean, I like the idea of them being abstract enough where you can't really tell whether they're hard or soft. Mm-hmm. People think they're stones.
Yeah, they read
like
as stones.
Eggs or cells.
They read as soft stones, which is they definitely you do see the softness in them.
Yeah,
I did not know it was pantyhose. I thought you were just really good at mixing paint colors that are very subtle.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So then. Okay, can we? I think we're like at an hour-ish, so I don't want to leave anything out because I feel like we've kind of deviated from stuff.
Yeah.
So we're at the point where we can keep going. I don't mind going for longer, but I want to maybe give you an opportunity to talk about things that I may have taken us away from, derailed you, things that you maybe wanted to talk about that I haven't given you a chance. I'm interested in, I feel like I maybe made it more about your parents than you, so I don't want to leave you with that. But I'm just super curious, and I think a lot of people don't know anybody that's been to USSR. So I think that grew up in the USSR. Yeah. So I think that's informative and kind of helpful right now too, in light of all the things that are happening in the world.
Exactly.
So I think that there's definitely value there, but I want to give you a chance to maybe talk more specifically about something that is not so serious that you may like.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't talked too much politics, but this is heavy stuff. Like if I came on a show and they made me talk about my Cuban origins, I would be like, so I'd like to give you a chance to talk about other stuff too.
I definitely think we should keep going if we can.
No, I'm just giving you, I'm just like, all right, I've dominated this.
Yeah.
Let me hand it over to you.
Okay, well, the interesting thing that you're saying about how there's not a lot of us, I feel like there are a lot of us. Like in LA.
I know one.
Well, if
you know any other artists, send them my way.
At OPAF, we started a Russian club.
Oh.
Which is like basically folks. I mean, when I say Russian.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. I mean.
Soviet.
Because Russia is a totally separate country from Belarus, although they are neighbors and they are politically seem to be intertwined in a precarious way.
You not at all like us in Latin America.
Yeah, not unlike, I don't know any other countries.
I don't know any other country that has complicated relationships with its neighbors.
Yeah.
That are problematic. Yeah, that's never happened before.
Yeah.
Damn you, Russia.
God, it's that. Let's steer away from that topic because I feel like that's
all
such a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're all like keenly aware of what's going on. It's really heartbreaking.
I have a hard time with just people vilifying other countries. You know,
agreed. And I still have family there.
I think that anytime the news is telling you that someone's bad, maybe don't hate that person. Maybe don't hate those people. You know, because it's pretty easy now that Russians are white, but it's still a bad look It feels very much like the anti-Islamic sentiment that was happening. Like, people aren't their leaders, so I just, in terms of American rhetoric, I have issues with how we talk about Russians. I don't have any problem with how we talk about Ukrainians because we talk very nicely about them. But yeah, so I what I like about this conversation is humanizing that experience, right? Because you were talking about your parents as victims of this thing that they didn't necessarily have control over. Yeah.
I mean, I think they're like victims of their circumstance, and I think that they had very few options either.
Yeah.
They could, I guess, like, what were there were no other options. Survival. Yeah.
And that's dignified. That's always dignified.
Yeah. Yeah, and whether or not like it turned, I guess it's very reductive to think of like, America, the land of opportunity. Like it's very complicated, and it is ever evolving, and
and I mean,
and yes, it is that.
Well, but it's a weird thing that we do here, where we celebrate immigrants as like.
Do we?
Well, we celebrate immigrants in a very specific way, where we're a country of immigrants, right? But we're also very xenophobic. And so what we like as Americans is assimilation.
Yes. You really nailed it. That's correct. As long as you if you come here, as long as you fold into our way of doing things.
That's where the term "you're one of the good ones" comes from. And it's not just something that's said to Black people. I've had it said to me, and I'm a white person by American standards, but by Nazi standards.
Wow. Yeah, you and I are both dead.
but I find conversation. I really enjoy this conversation, and maybe this is what people are going to hear about you that they wouldn't. Like what your friends are going to be able to deduce from you, because it really is an interesting piece of your personal history, your lineage, and like as a Cuban, I have a lot of people that simplify the situation with Cuba. That's why I say I'm a pinko, not a Marxist, because first of all, I've never read Marx, but yeah, it America Americans analyze the world on their values and have a hard time stepping outside of those.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, how did you get into TSA-LA? How what's your LA having fun story? You're a big scene member of the scene. You're very encouraging. I consider you part of my support structure. Like I've definitely.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
It's people always. It's funny when people think that I'm like a gossip because I do this show, and I'm like, bro, I keep secrets, motherfuckers.
I never heard that anybody thought of you as a gossip. That's interesting.
No, not any. But well, like people will. Okay, I'll give an example. Two people that I'm very close or that I like very much were like alluding to an argument that they had between each other, and I was like, oh wow, I'm so surprised. And then that person was like, I'm not talking to you about this. I'm like, what? Which is fair though.
I mean, okay, sure.
I mean, I definitely don't know him well enough to like. I would probably come to you with stress over the podcast and over the art world for advice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a lot of advice.
I know.
And a lot of opinions. I mean, I think I have to give credit to Sean because he really like spearheaded a lot of that stuff. So I guess maybe to go back. So we met in New York. We were both working as graphic designers in magazine publishing, which was we didn't meet through work. We met through a mutual friend on the subway platform.
Oh, okay.
It was really a cute story. And we, but we were both pursuing the same goal, which is how do I exist in this particular time, in this particular place and make art and like have enough time for that. And so we've been each other's support system. That's the nice thing is that we are a team.
You guys are always in a good mood and always happy, which is fucking weird. No.
We're not always in a good mood.
No. But okay, like
But we're happy when we're out in our community.
I think that you guys make the community accessible and friendly. And I think that there is one of the myths that I want to dispel with the show is that it's not accessible. There's like a million artists just like you that have day jobs, working class. Yeah. And they can't help but make art. Hey, Train. And so yeah, there's a whole community of us. And the more I do the show, the more people I meet, the more embedded I am in that like artist run scene that you guys have been a part of for like it's almost like I'm accelerating my entry into this place because I feel like you and Carl and all those people have been at it for like way longer than I have. I've been doing this show for 5 years, but I haven't been like networking and out, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, that Train wants us to know it's passing.
It really wants to know, yeah. Well, I think that's, you know what, it's really nice to hear like how we're perceived. I think that it's all like a incremental process too, right? Like when we were living in New York, we lived there as a couple for like, I don't know, I want to say like 7 or 8 years. I was there for a total of 11 years and our practices look totally different. We didn't do any artist run stuff. I mean, opportunities in New York are also really hard to come by and people hoard their, you know, like you have to like really claw your way to everything.
Which is so different than here.
It's really different. And Sean spearheaded our move to LA because he just was like so done with the grind. I think I had like a commitment to.
You had the sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've already like invested so much time into this.
That's how people stay in cults.
Just, oh God. Yeah.
New York is a cult. I just said it.
You know, I think it can be in some ways. I think it's, you know, I feel like it suited my personality in some ways because I found it really inspiring too. I'm somebody that learns by doing, and I, you know, was really doing it there. I was making it work, however that looked. But yeah, and we had a good community as well. Some of those artists are here now and we're closer to them. Yeah, it got to be like sort of impossible to do everything at the level that we wanted to be doing it.
It's super charming, New York.
Yeah.
Being able to walk everywhere, being able to just like party, it's really, really romantic. But
you also get to see like some of the
greatest stuff. Yeah.
Like for me, it was the art. You know, my eyes were open to so many new artists, to contemporary artists that were like using materials. I mean, at the time too, this was like, so I lived there from 2004 to 2014.
Okay.
Roughly.
That's 10 years.
Yeah.
Like long enough to call yourself a New Yorker.
Yep. I really had a lot of pride, you know, like in that I did it. Throw my hat into the air.
And then you still left.
You know, I mean, it became one of those situations where like my partner's not happy here.
Yeah.
Well, and also, you know, I know having immigrated, having lived abroad multiple times as like a young adult, like I know that I'm not that daunted by moving.
Yeah.
And by leaving a place. I know that eventually like I can plant my roots again and again and again. And it was hard to move to LA. We moved here in 2014 and we really didn't know anybody. And so actually that's how we started Usvitsky. We were looking for a studio space and we got this ground floor, basically storefront in Hollywood. And I mean, it's very random to be like on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, no.
But
I mean, that's not a bad spot because Region Projects is nearby, all of that. And then Last Projects used to be there too.
Last Projects used to be there, and we became really good friends with Ilona. She's another like Soviet. So she's part of the Russian club that we started. So was Elizabeth Prager. Do you know her?
No, but you'll introduce me, I'm sure.
Luca Fisher, Ilona. Like all of us were kind of like having conversations where we were like, we're losing our language skills and we actually like do have a connection to our past. Like, how do we keep this going? So we started a Russian club.
So wait.
Which is basically artists.
What's the language that you speak in Belarus?
Russian.
So okay. So it's kind of like Ukraine. where parts of it are like...
Well, Ukraine used to be part of the USSR, so everybody, like, with the official language was Russian.
Yeah.
I was about to say English. But yeah, there's dialects. Like, my grandmother spoke a dialect. Like, when I talk to my cousins in Moscow, they're like, you sound like a peasant, like the way you speak. Because or like, like country folk, because it's like a combination of yeah, totally. Because my Russian didn't develop beyond 5th grade, but also is like a combo of like, well, my phrases my grandmother used to say, which are like really dialects. And
what do you have any examples of phrases that are antiquated?
No, don't even ask.
I push you down the hill in a barrel, and
no. There's no. It's just more like I'll just use like a word, and I'll think like it's like a legitimate like part of the vernacular, and it's like really, really niche, and they'll just...
My parents saved me some trouble because I used to hang out with Latin Americans that were from a different region, and I would pick up words from them, and they were like, Javier, that is a bad word.
Oh.
Like, specifically, verga.
Yeah.
A la verga. And I was just saying it all the time because I picked it up from my friends, and and they were like... I mean, I knew what it meant, but I didn't realize how, like, coarse it was.
What is it?
Oh, it just means dick.
Oh. That's not that bad.
But it's like it's more like cock, but like even a little bit harder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, what were we talking about? Oh, being in New York. So then we moved to LA, 2014. We got the studio space, Noisky. Sorry, no Noisky yet. We just got a studio space. We used to share a studio space in Brooklyn. We were like, we're not working out of our house. It's a tiny little bungalow. So we get this space, and then we quickly realized we could have shows here. And it's, it's a storefront. It has a little courtyard. It actually makes a lot of sense. So we thought like that would be a great way. Also, like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out, like, if you give something back, you can be embraced by the community faster. So, and we know how hard opportunities are to come by.
It really does accelerate shit. Like, I know from experience doing this show, like, if people perceive you as doing a service to the community, they will support you.
Yeah. I think it's important too for your own growth. Like, I mean, I find that like artists actually, like, when we say like artists cobble it together from like different sources or from different means of existing, like, I actually think that's kind of a good thing to be able to, say like, I do a little bit of graphic design. I also like curate pop-ups. I am in a collective. I have an artist run space. Like, I mean, this is a lot of stuff. It didn't all happen at once.
No. Yeah.
Like at first we basically like moved here and we got the storefront and we're like, well, why don't we invite some guest curators to do shows here? So we invited our friend Ginger Porcella. What, you know Ginger?
No, I just love her name. I thought you were not going to say her last name.
Oh.
My friend Ginger, and I was like, she's a redhead, right? No.
all of her siblings have like plant names, like Heather. And,
that's where they're coming from.
They're like witchy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, I like it even better.
Yeah. So we knew her in New York, and she moved to San Diego, and she was the director of the San Diego Art Institute. So we invited her to curate a show, and then she invited someone else to, like, she kind of the San Diego Art Institute, that's like a school, or it's not like a museum.
It's a museum. Okay.
It's a museum in Balboa Park.
Okay.
Do you know? Are you familiar?
I know I've been by Balboa Park, but I that's like on the west side, right?
It's like the big.
Oh wait, no, we're talking San Diego.
Yeah, in San Diego that has like the botanical gardens, and like all of the institutions are kind of centralized in there.
Yeah, I have not been there.
she got brought over to run that space.
Holy shit! I just realized you've been here less time, like shorter than me. I came here in 2008.
What? Really?
Yeah, but I didn't have a partner that was hustling.
That's the thing, is our efforts are like essentially doubled.
Yeah. No, and I was also like trying to not make art at that point. It took me like 4 years to get back into art making after I moved here.
That long?
Yeah, but I had also just graduated my BFA, which was tramatic. And I had a teacher that was like making my life fucking miserable. And openly so. But I didn't even realize that she was the reason I hated my MFA experience until recently on an episode that I'm not going to release because the guest like wasn't happy with it. But I was like, oh my God, all my vitriol towards like academia can be pointed to one or two people really. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, see, this is interesting that you're doing the podcast and then you're like having revelations for yourself all the time.
Dude, yeah. It's literally called I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like none of
us kind of do. I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, do I know like anything?
That's why, like, bro, the idea of living in a time where people that were righteous were considered good.
Yeah.
He's a righteous man. I read that and I'm like, oh my God, insufferable dick. Insufferable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So we were talking about Usvitsky. So we started to invite, neither Sean or I felt like we were comfortable calling ourselves curators. I don't know if I like still would call myself like, I mean, I have curated. I mainly say organize because I just like bring people together and it's really like the value.
I dated someone that was not taking that shit from me. She's like, you're a fucking curator.
I think that I put more onus on a curator. Like, I think that there is value in like actually studying it and also like having,
do you do writing for the stuff? Is that way?
I hate it.
But well, I mean, you're doing all the work of a curator. You just don't have the credentials. Is that what separates you? We're having an intervention here, guys. Give me a second.
I guess, maybe. No, I just think like I'm bringing a different set of skills to it too. I'm bringing like the perspective of the artist to it. Whereas I think a curator can have the distance of.
But there's artist curators.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
most curators put their own art in the show.
How do you feel about that?
Not great.
Yeah, for some reason that is like a no-no. It's like an unspoken.
But it's not. It's so common.
Yeah.
Every group show that I've been in has had somebody from. I mean, not everyone.
Actually, I think we've done it too, but mainly like we wouldn't do that at Usvitsky necessarily, like at our space. But if we've gone abroad, then that's like a different opportunity altogether.
I did a ceramics show, and everybody that I knew, I curated a ceramics show, was shocked that I didn't put work in the show. And I was like, I don't make ceramics, guys. You know, right. Like it wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
But that's when I realized that that's like a really common practice.
Yeah. Do you tend to curate things that you just enjoy looking at, or is it like kind of work that is similar to yours, or both?
I curate stuff that I am interested in that is not necessarily within my wheelhouse of making stuff. I mean, that it doesn't have to be something that is parallel to my work at all.
Yeah.
Like ceramics. And I just appreciate specific things. And I think that putting together, I think it's a different skill than being an artist for sure. I agree with you on that. But I don't think that it's like, I don't think anything is exclusive. You know, I don't think anything should be elitist. I don't think that just because you have, like, you know.
Oh, I wasn't.
No, but I'm
saying that.
No, I'm not saying that you're saying that. But like, I think that what I'm reacting to in the way that you are not claiming the title is I don't think that that curator or artist is a title someone gives to you. I think that's the shit you take. You know, like you know, like. I mean, if you're curating shows, right? So, like, curating is the verb, curator is the noun. And nothing else matters to me.
But I think of it more as like community building. Like I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm yes-anding this.
No, but I just want you to say, you're going to admit you're a curator by the end of this show.
Sure. In a way, in a sense.
I'm teasing.
I think that there's value in also like studying it deeply and investing your time into just doing that thing. I think it doesn't matter. I'm like a Gen Gen Z, or I don't like labels.
You're a Gen Xer. Or no, you're what was a Gen X, Y? You're Gen Y.
Am I?
Millennial.
Oh, I guess, yeah, that's the other name for it.
You're an elder millennial. Yeah, I just think it's an interesting conversation. I get what you're saying, but on the same token, for me, it's like, yes, there are artists that have higher degrees than me. Mm-hmm. There are artists that, and it like,
it's not about like,
but for me, art making and curatorial process is more about experience and actually kind of what he was talking about, what Hagop was talking about in his episode, art DNA. It's a very specific perspective that you're presenting as an artist. You're curating works, you're putting together, you're making a dialogue. And I don't think that you need like, to have a PhD in that.
I completely agree with you. I don't think you have to have a PhD. I think that the thing is like, okay, like Ginger, for example, she's a director of a museum. All she does is curate. All she does is specifically seek out artists, that she thinks deserve those opportunities.
But that doesn't invalidate your work.
Of course not.
Okay.
But I'm totally bringing a different set of perspectives to it. Like, I typically show work that like I also enjoy looking at. Mm-hmm. Like the show that I did at TSA was like for women. That was very intentional. I wanted it to be specifically
bunch of broads.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they deserve the opportunity. I feel like, and that doesn't negate the fact that like...
Well, I mean, I think that's really the mindset that I come from too. It's like, if I want to show people that don't have the opportunity to show, as someone whose mom was an artist for the longest time and really talented, but never really developed her own practice in the same way. Mm-hmm. Like my mom, I would say that my mom could benefit from an art education like the like we have, like just a basic BFA thing. But I don't think that she's like less. I think that I can just tell her, hey, you need to make more of this body of work before you start jumping around. Mm-hmm. Those are very basic things. I still think she's an artist, Like Purvis Young is a homeless guy that was really big. I think he made too much work and flooded the market with it, if I recall correctly. But like, I doubt Purvis Young was like an MFA. He might have been, but to me, it's like that I mean, that's my shit, like that's my hang up. Like, I don't like, I'm upset that you won't call yourself a curator. I think that that's not right. I am triggered. I'm like,
really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, because Molly Schulman and I come from a much more unhierarchic approach to this. And
that's actually what I'm saying is like, I already wear like so many different hats. Mm-hmm. I don't need more titles.
Yeah.
If anything, like I want less titles. But yeah, like I think community builder, let's say, or like organizer, it's just more.
Oh, you want more grandiose ones.
It's just broader. No, it just includes. It's more inclusive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about.
Well,
I'm interested in inclusivity more than like, because I feel like the art world there's already so much gatekeeping and so much hierarchy.
Okay.
Like, I would prefer to put forward.
Well, the way that you're framing it is a little bit more of a artist mutual aid thing too. Like, I mean, not mutual aid in that you're providing funding for people or whatnot, but you're providing.
We are if we can.
Well, you're also paying the rent on a space and you're providing that space, right? So technically you are giving some money, you're doing that for two spaces. I know for sure.
Truth.
Yeah. But okay. I appreciate your counterpoint.
Yeah.
Which is, you think that curation, it's not that you're not worthy of curation. It's that you think that what you're doing is maybe more about the community service than it is the actual selecting of work.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I agree with that perspective, but I still call myself a curator. Because someone yelled at me for not calling myself.
It's just a word. Yeah. It does. I mean, sure. Are we like? I mean, also I feel like it's also like a buzzword, right? Like, I feel like everybody's a curator now all of a sudden, so it's sort of loses
is that
its
the
meaning.
Case?
Well, like on Instagram, like I'm a curator of music, or I think it's used. It's overused. It's like liminal. Like it's just becomes a word that loses its meaning because like.
But what about artists then?
Great point. That too. I mean, that's.
I know.
But this is why, like, I don't really even say like I'm a sculptor. Like I just say artist because it's like more broad, and it doesn't push me towards. It doesn't put me in some sort of like funnel, like where I can only like exist. I'm not siloed off that way because my work is like. It is this now, but doesn't have to be this forever. No,
especially because you have a day job and you're not dependent on people buying your work to dictate where you want to take it, which is
sure.
Which is good. Like, which is definitely one of the many ways of doing it. You know?
And actually, the beauty, to maybe circle back to the day jobs thing, is with design, I'm able to do it like from home. I basically went freelance when we moved to LA, and I'm just I'm able to maintain like my income that way, which is great. I've actually been considering maybe like moving towards like mentorship, like taking on a younger designer to like expand my own business, but that's a different.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can only do so much with the time that we have.
There's a very popular clip of Deborah saying that this whole idea that you need to keep growing is ridiculous.
Totally.
That she didn't start a business to grow. She started a business so that she could make art.
Yeah.
Which is also something to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what she's saying. And I think, like, I guess for me is I would love to be able to, like, make a little bit more money. Or everything else seems to be increasing, like our rent's increasing. Yeah. Our costs are increasing. So, like, I have to make more money, generally speaking.
The banks just crashed. It's going to get worse.
I know.
So I think you should hire this person.
I know we live in a really weird, wild
so
time.
You're making the case for growth so that you don't shrink.
I'm making for incremental growth that is in line with the market.
Well, if you whatever that's the thing that is interesting is if you don't grow, you shrink. You know, like if
you just stay the same? Then you're shrinking because everything else is rising.
It's rising.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then TSA. So okay, you've got TSA, you got high beams. We've covered high beams pretty extensively on here.
Right, yeah.
If you want to talk about it a little bit, I'm more than happy to. I just want to, but you have so many titles, I'd like to cover them all. So
many titles.
You're also your TSA. Okay, so let's do the list. Your Noisky, your TSA LA.
Well, let me give you like the timeline. So we move here. We start Noisky in like 2015, and so that's our studio space and the exhibition space. So we can only do maybe like 3 shows a year tops because we have to basically move out every time we do a show. And then in 2019, Carl invited me to apply to TSA. Sean had already been.
So we got music. We should start wrapping up.
Okay. Well, Sean was in a collective as well. And they invited me to be in their collective. And I was thinking, we already collaborate so much that I think I'm going to do my own thing. So I joined TSA, and then the pandemic happened. And then that's when we started High Beams with Carl and Danny and Sean and a bunch of other people, just as a pivot because TSA wasn't hosting any shows. We pivoted that model to be more of an artist residence.
Okay.
That's okay. So yeah, I have my finger in many pies. And also, like I have my own practice and I got invited to be part of this show.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut it short.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you hear?
You don't hear that?
No.
You don't hear music?
Well, how do we wrap it up?
I'm just going to come clean. I'm just going to tell them like, hey, look, we had to wrap this shit up.
Yeah. Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah, it's okay. We know each other. And I'll probably have you back on at some point when I'm desperate for like guests once I've been canceled. I won't do the show then.
Don't do anything to get canceled. You're gonna fuck a lot of people that are like relying on this.
Oh my God, the responsibility. Yeah.
Do you feel like
No, I feel like I have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep secrets. I'm like a secret keeper. Anyway.
Well.
So
yeah.
okay.
We probably should wrap it up anyway because I think the gallery is gonna open soon.
Yeah. All right. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry we had to cut it short, but we actually have to get going because, first of all, there's music and the gallery's about to close. So I'm sorry that this episode was cut so short. Yeah, we're just going to quickly wrap up and hopefully this will work. Yeah. Because it's so fucking loud.
Well, maybe they won't feel like it's short because it's been an hour and a half and they're probably like,
no, but we just cut it off immediately. We're sorry for the abrupt ending to this episode. We don't usually like to do it like that, but we want to respect the people that gave us the opportunity to shoot in this amazing space. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. We're going to get out of here.
Should I say like...
Yeah, and then what can we promote for you?
Oh, well, you can follow me on Instagram, Katya at the studio with underscores between all the words, which is easier than having to spell out my last name. Mm-hmm. Or just look me up online, KatyaUsvitsky.com, USVITSKY.
Okay.
Just Google me. We'll put it in the comments, right?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be the title of your...
Oh, right. My name will be the title. Yeah. So, title. Yeah, you can find me. I don't usually... I try to actually post like snippets of what I'm doing in the studio on Instagram, but I'm kind of really hating social media lately, so I post pretty rarely, and it's usually like, here's what's happening, the end.
My best advice to you is don't make it your job.
Yep. I'm trying not to make it my 4th job.
Yeah. No, this is like my 6th job.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I had a really nice time.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, first of all, for even listening to the show. And
I
second
love it.
of all,
it's all
for
my
being,
friends.
being on the show. I don't know if that's as big a compliment as you think it is. I wouldn't listen to it otherwise. I'm totally teasing.
No, I would. I listen to every podcast. I love podcasts. I don't watch them, so this is actually really interesting.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll look great.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much, and we'll be back next week with another artist and another topic that may or may not be art related.
Thank you.